may begin.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm calling to order the annual meeting of the University of Louisville's President's Council. We've got a big agenda. You've all seen it, so I'm going to move on right into it, folks. First item of business is to hear recommendations from the nominating and executive committees. Dan Hall?
Yes. Thank you, Charlie. The nominating committee recommends the following action for current board members. This will be for reappointment for an additional 3-year terms. And the nominees are Luann Atlas, Sherman Brown, Kelly Burke, Tony Clem, Charlie Dahlem, Clint Follett, Eugene Gilchrist, Kim Gorski, Ali Hayter, Greg Inman, Don Kohler, Kevin Shern, Dan Teffel, and Keel Thompson. And nominees for appointment to emeritus status are David B. George, W. Scott Jones, Robert Cotter, Raymond Strothman. So on behalf of the nominating and executive committees, I recommend the adoption of these actions by the president.
Thanks, Dan. And again, the reason why we're asking for the president to adopt and take action on these recommendations is it's pretty difficult in a virtual meeting to call for a vote. So, Dan, would you please continue?
Thank you, Charlie. The nominating committee further recommends the following for election as new members to the President's Council for 3-year terms. They are Bonita Black, Wilson Chan, Mike Davis, Marcus Fulmer, Jim Lancaster, Denise Sears, and Ron Wright. On behalf of the nominating and executive committees, I recommend the appointment of these members to the President's Council.
Thanks, Dan. And again, being a virtual meeting, we're going to ask the president to take action on these appointees to the council. Dan, if you don't mind, please continue.
Thank you. And finally, the nominating committee recommends the following as election as 2021 officers for the council: Charlie Dahlem, chair; Cheryl Zimmerman, vice chair; and Dan Hall, secretary. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Dan. And on behalf of the executive committee, I recommend that Neely approve this slate. Our next order of business is our academic unit committees. We're going to meet today with the College of Business, the School of Engineering, and the School of Public Health. Now, during each one of these sessions, if you all have any questions, if you look to the left of your screen, you should have a chat button. And if you've got a question, put it in the chat, and Jake's going to be coordinating those questions for the end of each session. So we're going to start with the School of Business. We have Todd Meridian, Joe Neary, and Jim Allen to update us. So Todd, Joe, and Jim, please take it away. You're muted, Todd.
That has never happened to me before. Jake, is there going to be a slide deck put up?
Yes, sir. I was just waiting to share that. I didn't know if you had any other introductions.
I do want to say thank you for having me. It seems like it was the blink of an eye ago that I was first on campus and I came over and met with this group. Boy, the things we didn't know. But what fun it's been. It really has. And I'm pleased to be here, and I appreciate your time. Jake, if you'll put that up, I wanted to talk about the progress that we're making in the College of Business. We've been innovating and growing for at least these past 4 years that I've been here, and we've been getting better at everything that we do. I really believe that. I believe that we are better today than we were a couple of months ago, and we're certainly better than we were a year ago, and so on. We're investing in teaching, research, student success, and advising and connecting with our partners, our alumni, and our city. In 2019, we came up with an acronym, if you'll flip the slide, Jake, LEAP. The L is for Louisville, or of Louisville. We are committed. This acronym is not meant to be a mission. It's not really a set of values. It's a set of differentiators. It's what makes us different and why we show up every day, what our identity is. The L is for Louisville. We believe very strongly that we are of Louisville. We are committed to building off the strengths of our city and region. And we also believe that we contribute to those strengths. We're committed to contributing to them. What other city could support a claim on equine business? We have the world's only accredited equine industry center and program, or a program on franchising or distilled spirits management. We've built or are building certificates in each of these areas, and in family business, data analytics, logistics and supply chain. We're building off of Louisville. The E is for entrepreneurial. The college has had a world-class program in entrepreneurship for decades. That's well known, and we're continuing to invest in it. We had in a very small department, we hired 2 faculty members last year, and we'll be hiring 2 faculty members this year. It's time to refresh that emphasis, double down on being the best entrepreneurship program in the country. The A is for accelerating, and this is probably the most deeply held value or passion that we have. We accelerate the principled aspirations of our students and our city. And then P is for principled. We do everything with integrity. We tell the truth. We tell the truth that deserves to be told. We conduct ourselves with kindness and respect for others. We are principled. These 4 letters stand in our foyer now to remind everyone when they arrive at work or arrive for class of what makes the College of Business special. The other thing that I want to tell you about is that we've been growing. And Jake, if we could go to the next slide. We've been turning a virtuous cycle. People understand these cycles of the rich get richer. And this is kind of a dynamic system where we invest in high impact programs. Those were the levers that were most readily at hand to change our direction and to accelerate our progress over the last 4 years. So, but why do we do that? Why do we innovate with new programs? High value programs that can command margin in the marketplace and can change students' lives? Well, one reason is within our business model and for our own economic survival and growth, we need to gather the revenues and the resources that those programs generate and reinvest them in the people, in the culture, and the operations, should be on this slide, that help us then further improve all our programs and all of our offerings. We also gather revenues by our partnerships with our alumni and with the city and with our corporate base. Jake, could we go to the next slide? So this may be a little bit of an eye chart for a meeting like this, but it makes its point regardless of if you can read the fine print. 4 years ago, we had an assortment of degree programs defined mostly by MBA programs and our Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. You can see that we've revised or refreshed almost every program in our portfolio. Our product portfolio today has been refreshed, it's relevant, it's up to date. The 2 curricula that are not changed, the BSBA and the seated MBAs, have still been augmented with new content, new teaching tools. But the exciting things that you would want to note on here, in the MBA domain, we launched an online MBA in 2019. We had a 50 student intake in August of 19. We had a 125 student intake in August of 20, and we're out recruiting for a January intake. So that's making our education available to a lot of students who otherwise wouldn't have been able to get an MBA because they needed the time and place convenience of online delivery. We've also launched an all-new MSBA. We launched that in 2018, and this year it had an intake of 76 students. That's a talent attractor. I'm on the GLI board, and in the city you hear a lot of talk about talent attraction. And one of the things that the MSBA can do for us is attract bright, young, analytical minds that will populate the jobs in our industries that need business analytics due to the evolution of big data. The other program I just tell you about quickly is that we've augmented our BSBA with a degree called a BBA. A BSBA is a deep dive. You can get a Bachelor of Science anywhere in education. It's a deep dive if it's a BS in physics or chemistry. We've built a great BSBA program, but it's a deep dive and it demands calculus and a lot of quant chops. We've augmented that with a BBA. So our product portfolio has evolved and become better and more relevant. And there's a slide here, if Jake can get it for us, that I'll just tell you. I showed you a virtuous cycle. where we gather resources and invest it in people. And if we can see the slide with the pictures of the faculty that we onboarded just a couple months ago in August. Well, here, these graphs, I didn't see the slide chart moving ahead, so I was going to jump ahead, but just to show you the impact on our operations and the increase in our impact on our city. Here's a graph of our graduate intakes over the last 3 years. We've grown 50% on each intake. And Jake, if you flip it one more time, it'll show you the goal. And then on the undergraduate side, the next slide is our kind of flat line for undergraduate enrollments over the last 5 years. And it shows the goal too, if Jake will flip through those slides. So we were flat in undergraduate, but now with our BBA and our refreshed BSBA, the goal will be to grow that too. If we could see that next slide, Jake. And then, so that's the story. And I promised to stick to my time so Jim and Joe can talk. But we've been growing by launching new products. And look at this wonderful new faculty that we were able to recruit. These are our incoming faculty members. If you look at this group, these are extraordinary scholars. Every one of these people has generated interesting papers that's changing knowledge in their field. They were screened to make sure that they were not just researchers, but also great teachers, and also not just great teachers, but also great researchers. So this is a group that we are so proud of. They are a diverse group, they're an energetic group, and they make me wish I was 27 years old and just getting my PhD again. I'm envious of these people. They're looking at interesting questions with a lot of energy, and they're bringing it into the classrooms. The next slide is just a kind of a complement to this. We've also grown our staff. So that's really the end of the story for me. We've grown our staff over the last 3 years from 40 to 57. That means if a student walks in on a Tuesday afternoon at 3 without an appointment, somebody's available to advise them. If an event needs to be put on, 2 people show up to make sure that the fit and finish are crisp. So I really believe in what we've done over the last 4 years, but I wanted to use my time to show you how we've evolved our product mix, how we're adding great people, and we're turning that virtuous cycle. I think that's the end of, I had another image of the virtuous cycle, but it was just to revisit it so people would remember why we are adding those great programs that I showed you, gathering these resources, and adding the great people that I showed you. It's because we want to be a top 20 a public business school in the country. We want to be as good as the Kelly School at Indiana, as good as the Haas School at Cal. We're getting there. And imagine this city with a top business school, a world-class business school sitting here on I-65 South. We are very good now, we're excellent, we're gonna be extraordinary, and we're doing it by turning this wheel. It's time for me to get out of the way and let Joe and Jim tell you about our board and the things that our board is doing to help us advance that aspiration.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for having us here today. So I joined the staff here about 2 years ago and really came in and was challenged to say, how do we get folks engaged to keep that virtuous cycle moving? You know, our alumni councils do great work in just getting people in that under that big tent. We've got department and program advisory boards that are kind of starting to really pop off, whether it's our Family Business Center board that is just phenomenal, our School of Accountancy board, which one of our staff members, Brittany Key, has been essential in moving it forward in terms of getting people engaged, connected, and providing resources. And then my job is to work with Todd, with the Board of Advisors, and now we've actually taken the next step to further engage with the President's Council Subcommittee so that we can make sure that the efforts of both groups are really dovetailed together nicely. So as you can see here, this is our engagement model. You know, our alumni councils are our big tent. We move it forward so we get the cream of the crop folks like you all into our Board of Advisors and onto our President's Council. Jake, if you can move to the next slide, please. So since I've been here working with Jim Allen and Todd, we're really working to refine what our Board of Advisors do. And how do we make that LEAP acronym, those differentiators, how do we bring those to life with our board? And then, because once our board sets the tone, then our alumni will follow. So the things that we've done over the last 2 years is we've refined our composition and structure. That means moving some folks to emeritus status and thanking them for their service and making sure they feel connected and loved, but recognizing that we need some different blood and new folks on board. We've diversified our board. We look with a keen eye to make sure that we are not pale, male, and stale as it has been in the past. We've formalized our bylaws, and they're still evolving, but we're making sure that we're getting it right. So that way, as we onboard our members, they really understand what are the expectations of a member of a board of this caliber, something that is a true honor to be on across the city. We've introduced a giving expectation. Now that's one of the things we're still working on, is to figure out the right tone and the right project and the right size and scope for each board member according to their means. But that is something that has not been in place the 20 years prior. And we've implemented a committee system, and Jim can talk a little bit more about that. But the thing that I'm most excited about, Jake, if you can move on to our next slide, please. We recently challenged our board to help us think about our big, hairy, audacious goals. And if you're talking to Kent Euler, he uses a different A word for that. But our board was really key in helping us refine what we need to do to make sure that we stay relevant and focused on what the city needs. The things that I'm most proud of about this, it really helped us refine what we need to do in a context that was meaningful outside. We can sit here inside and say, oh, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. But to have actual folks in the business community, in our alumni community, tell us, no, this is really important to us. This is what we need. So we're more focused. It was a member-led effort. This was not something, it was just us saying, this is what we need you to do. We had a small group of folks, an ad hoc committee, just take the reins, and they ran with it. It engaged our faculty and our staff in the process. They've given our faculty something really great to consider. So we're going back and forth and partnering as we really should. It gave us purposeful, instructive advice. We've got clear marching orders. And now we're moving forward with an active, engaged board. If we were going to ask folks to help drive resources into the college, we needed folks to take ownership. And we really have a great group of folks that have taken this on and taken it as their charge. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the person who's been leading that effort, Jim Allen.
Great. Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Todd. Clearly, the business school is on an impressive path with a great trajectory. And we've got a very active and engaged advisory board. And I think that's really the key to any board of this type, is to get engagement. And so you can go and sit and listen at a meeting and get great feedback and advocate for the business school. But if you really want your advisory board to be right there with you and own the outcomes with you, you've got to get them engaged and be part of the process. And I think that's really the step that we've taken, is everybody who attends one of our meetings knows they're going to have to come and participate, come prepared, and get engaged so that we can share the outcomes and enjoy the success together as we move forward. So I think that's really been the biggest difference that I've observed in how we've evolved the board. Obviously, there were some structural things that needed to occur to get everything in the right spot, make sure that we were aligned with the President's Council, obviously to formalize the process, giving expectations, make sure that our board has some skin in the game, understand what's expected of them and the responsibilities that they're assuming when they join this advisory board. But then that all leads to this level of engagement, which I think is really, really encouraging. Joe referenced the big, hairy, audacious goals that we talked about, or that he referenced, and Kent Euler's not here because we can't trust him to not use that other A word as he does this, but just kidding on that front. But to give you an example of some of the things in the areas where we're focusing, the student experience, and that's both during the experience on campus and then afterwards. We want to make sure that we stay connected to students as they go forward in their lives and in their careers. We want to be the epicenter of business knowledge in this region, to be that thought leader, to be that go-to organization, whether it's business problems or connecting with the business community. Obviously, need to have a world-class campus and high-tech orientation to the student experience on campus, obviously moving forward in that direction. And then finally, develop partnerships and engage with employers, whether it's internships or ultimately as employers for our students. But I think we've come a long way, and it's an exciting time to be associated with the College of Business. Again, the numbers sort of speak for themselves as Todd shared those. But again, we've got a very active and engaged board, which I think is going to spell great success and enable the College of Business to leverage that resource. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. Congratulations to Todd and Joe for great work to get us to this point. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
We certainly do really appreciate the chance to connect with the President's Council. And, you know, I see Jasmine Ferrier on here. When she came on as our executive vice president for advancement, she reminded me of a story from a few years ago. She also, by the way, was just such a welcome energy and integrity and humility. She's just wonderful to work with. But she reminded me of a story I told her. And it's the reason all of these things come together. It's our students. When I first walked, this is a true story. I walked into Fraser Hall the first day I was coming into the building at 7:15, and there was a kid sitting in a booth studying. And it turned out, he says, "Oh, you're the new dean?" He says, "Oh, I'm in the UPS program, and I've been working all night, and I'm coming to class, and I've got a 3.9. And I thought, kid, I had to add up 3 semesters to get to a 3.9. He was just smart, hardworking, grateful for everything he was getting. There's something so special about the young people at the University of Louisville that come into our buildings looking to change their lives. So I had graphs on here, and Jake and I worked through the PowerPoint kind of quickly, but we have sloping lines that look like we're in growth because we are in growth. We had new programs up there that look like we're high tech and advancing all of that. But at the end of the day, it's about the students that come to the University of Louisville to change their lives. And I think that 4 years on, in my time as dean, 3 years on with President Bendaputi, we have put together offerings out of the College of Business that are living up to that obligation to those young people. We're changing their lives, we're accelerating their principled ambitions, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. You know, you all were kind enough to invite me to your all's last meeting, and it was unbelievably engaging. And Jim, you're right. When you come to that meeting, you got to be prepared, and it's a thoughtful meeting that's going to bring thoughts that everybody's going to take action on. It was really, really well done, and I appreciate you inviting me to it. Todd, thank you for your comments. Joe, are there any questions for the business committee that came up in the chat room, Jake?
I don't see any at the moment. However, that does not mean that people don't have them. There were some issues with the slides not being seen for the time being. I'm not sure why. Sorry about those technical difficulties, but we will email these presentations out to everyone following the meeting, of course. And if you do have questions, please send them to me and I'll forward them to the appropriate folks.
That'd be great. Todd, I don't know if you're going to be able to hang around in this meeting. Are you going to hang around this meeting for a little while, or do you have to go?
I'd be glad to hang around if I'm invited. That'd be a privilege. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just what I wanted to say was maybe over the next few minutes, if somebody was getting in and they had a question, we'll do the same question and answer after the speed school next, and maybe there'll be some business school questions that might dribble in for us. So I just wanted to kind of leave that open for the council.
Sure.
As well.
And if the technology is working the way I think it does, I'm going to put my email in here and my cell phone. And anybody on this council is welcome to reach out to me at any time. We'd be glad to connect with anyone and answer questions or join in and thinking about how we can do better.
Thank you, and thank you all for your all's good work. Coming up next, we have Emmanuel Collins and Marty McClelland. They are going to discuss the Speed School of Engineering. So Marty, Emmanuel, you all have the floor.
Okay. The purpose of my presentation is to give you a flavor for the direction in which Speed School is moving. For those of you who don't know me very well, I've been there just over 2 years. And so I've had a chance to start to structure the Speed School so that it will continue to progress. And when I got there, I felt that we needed to better define ourselves. So let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Is that having a hard time? Okay.
Emmanuel, I think, let me make sure that Jake. All right, there you go.
Okay, there we go. So we will have a draft of our strategic plan next month. So this is actually a picture from a rough draft, and you see I had to change the 4 to a 3. So I was editing it as I was preparing this presentation. I noticed they had put 2024 instead of 2023. But it's patterned after the U of L plan. So it's specific to speed school, but we use the format of U of L's 2019-2022 plan. And one of the things that we really liked about the university plan is that it has quantified goals. So it just doesn't give aspirations quantitatively. It gives, qualitatively, it gives quantitative aspirations. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is also from the draft of the strategic plan, and it states what our vision is and what our mission is. Our vision, as it states here, is to become the global leader of experiential-based engineering education and high-quality research in featured areas. So we really feel that we can be the best in the world in experientially based engineering education. In fact, I think we probably already are, but we're not well known. We're not going to be the best in all areas of research, but the areas of research that we choose to really delve into, we think we can be the best in the world. And then our mission is a little bit more detailed version of our vision. This thing is moving all over the place on me, so I'll look at my copy. So again, we're trying to produce engineers that have a strong experiential base, but also have a strong theoretical base. We're trying to create a welcoming environment for a wide variety of students. This is very important to our identity. Also, what's important is to partner with technology and manufacturing corporations in our area so that our students are better prepared for the workforce. And of course, I've already mentioned the research. So I just want to give you a flavor of some of the things that we're doing to fulfill our vision and our mission. So next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, there we go. In terms of experiential learning, we have a big focus on a co-op program, which is mandatory. And something that people may not know is that we're the only engineering college embedded in a Research One university that has a planned 4-year mandatory co-op program. Virtually all other programs are 5-year programs. Our program, when I came in, had one track. That was our traditional track. And we said, okay, we need to diversify this. So now we have a research track, which would be particularly useful for students who want to go into graduate school. We have an internship track, which is designed for students that want to experience more than one company. And then we have a global engineering track, where obviously designed for students who want to have an overseas experience. But that's not the only areas that we do have for experiential learning. We're currently putting a lot of emphasis on undergraduate research experiences outside of the research track here. So, and we have a lot of competition teams that we emphasize that also give our students experience. Next slide, please. Is it having a hard time? Okay, I'll just tell you what's on the next slide. The next slide really talks about our focus areas of research. These are the areas in which we're trying to be the best in the world. And I'll read them out to you because they're important. Additive manufacturing, biomedical applications and devices, data science and artificial intelligence, energy and sustainability, engineering education, logistics and data analysis, micro and nanotechnology, robotics and automation, and sustainable infrastructure. So these 9 areas are our focus areas, and almost all that we do in research can fall in at least one of these 9 domains. Next, please. So I'm going to give you a flavor for what we're doing in terms of recruitment, retention, and diversity. And a lot of this has to do with creating a welcoming environment for our students and one in which they can thrive. But of course, nowadays, we really have to grow. To be successful in the current economic environment for universities, we have to become bigger. We have to become better. So just one of the things we've had for years is partnerships with K through 12 institutions. So we're always looking to strategically add to these partnerships. So we've added Grace M. James Academy of Excellence, which focuses on underrepresented minority girls, Cabbage Pack Settlement Program, which is an after-school program that focuses on underrepresented minorities. And we've recently developed a dual credit program with Manual High School, which has a very diverse population of students. We've really emphasized giving more competitive engineering scholarships. We work with the Jim Begani at the university to make sure our scholarships are competitive with our peers and our competitors. And we put a lot of emphasis on recruiting underrepresented freshmen. So in just 1 year, as an example, we've increased our overall freshman numbers by about 6%, and it would have been higher had COVID not hit. We were thinking we were going to have a record freshman class, but that did not happen because of COVID. But even then, our African American freshman population increased 88%. Our Hispanic population increased 30%. Our first generation increased in part because we at the university changed the definition of first generation, but we also increased that number. So we could do better at recruiting women, that is for sure. But you can see that we've had quite a bit of success in diversifying our freshman population. Next, please. So these are some of the major features of our recruitment, retention, and diversity initiatives. One of the things that we noticed is that we had a very rigid way of letting students in the speed school. So they had to have a certain ACT and a certain GPA. And if they didn't make it by those criteria, we didn't let them in for the most part. So what we did was we realized that's too rigid. We were filtering out good students that could make it through an engineering program. So we developed an alternative admissions path. So now they can take this alternative admissions path. Some of them will still end up in the pre-engineering program, which is on the right middle of your screen, which is really an arts and science program. Traditionally, it took 1 year to make it over to speed school, but now we have defined a path that allows them to come into speed school after 1 semester if they meet certain criteria. All of our students are now required to take a math placement test. So this can be used as part of the alternative admissions path, but even if you take the traditional path, you still must take the test so we can determine if we're putting you in the right mathematics. And we had a consultant come in and said your retention can increase fairly dramatically if you put this in place. And something that we kicked off just a few days ago is the Speed School Alliance and Mentorship Program, which is we call SAM, which is a school-wide program that's currently available to freshmen, and in January will be available to upperclassmen as well. So we hope to continue this year after year. It's relatively costly. It costs about the same amount as we would pay a staff member. So we hired a company that has a program that allows us to do this large-scale mentoring. Next, please. So this is my final slide. One of the things that we suffer from in speed school is a need for more space. So one of the things, one of the alternatives that we've looked at very deeply is moving into the Humanigem building, which would become a research building for our robotics center, which we call Larry. It's about 30,000 square feet. It's a U of L Foundation building, and many faculty, staff, postdocs, graduate students, and even undergraduate students would occupy this space. If that were to happen, we would free up space in some of our existing buildings. It's more expensive than we thought it would be, so we're looking at an alternative, which is to involve constructing a building that's relatively inexpensive. Think about $2.5 million, that would be either on our historic speed school campus or close to it. And in both cases, we will look to name at least one of the buildings and some of the rooms in the buildings. So that's all I wanted to say for now. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
This is Marty McClelland, and let me just chime in about the President's Council experience with Dr. Collins and his team. You know, one of the things I think he didn't really say is how much the school has grown in terms of quality and quantity of students in the last 30 years or so. And the facilities have been almost completely static. So, you know, he's grown at 20 or 30 or 40% over the last few decades with static facilities. And, you know, in our couple meetings with Dr. Collins and his team, I think we just came to recognize how critically important the speed school is to the economic future of Louisville and Kentucky. And we all thought that we're lucky to have Dr. Collins, and we urge the university and this committee to support their activities.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Emmanuel, very, very much. Are there any questions in the chat room, Jake, for speed school or business school right now?
Not at the moment. That's a negative.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Gentlemen, both, thank you so much for your hard work and for your presentation. We really, really appreciate it. A lot of great things going on at Speed School, as always. Last but not least, we're going to get an update from Craig Blakely and Joe Steyer for the School of Public Health and Information Sciences. Craig and Joe, you guys are next on deck.
And I think I saw Joe just joined us, and if that's the case, I'm going to let him start us off.
Okay, thanks, Craig.
Sorry, Craig. Joe is not on.
Oh, okay. I just saw in the chat that it showed that he was. Okay, so let me pick it up then, and I'll run with what he was going to say at the outset. So if you want to jump slowly past the second slide to the third slide. So public health, it is clearly a time for public health, both in an applied sense and in an academic sense. So if you jump to the next slide, I've got a number of points that Joe was going to make at the outset. He was going to raise the issue of now being the time to engage in public health, and was going to talk a great deal about the history here at the school. He was going to make some points about how public health seems to go through cycles and every period of years, and that we're on an upswing right now. I would ad lib there a little bit and indicate that if you watch what happens in this country, we periodically make major investments in public health. The last time we did that was the anthrax scares of about roughly 2 decades ago, and then we slowly let things dismantle. We're now at a point where we very clearly in the last year did not have the infrastructure in place that should have been there in order to deal with the COVID crisis that we're all experiencing.
A lot of things going on with links between population health and prevention and health delivery systems as well. Next slide, please. He wanted to talk a little bit about some of the collaborative things that are going on, the active engagement with the tracking and tracing activities that are in play, public health's role in vaccinations and where all that is headed. And then everybody knows that social determinants is, in the last several years, been a huge piece of everything health related, both in the clinical side and in the population health side. And then clearly the whole DEI equation is one that public health has played a major role in. Next slide, please. So really quickly wanted to share our mission vision that we put together in the last year as we were preparing for our reaccreditation as a school of public health. Underlined a couple of the key points. Metropolitan, it's something that our president stresses all the time. Collaboration, integration. One of the things that we strongly feel strongly about is that if you're engaged in public/population health, you're missing the point if you're not looking to influence policy and practice, because that's the way you reach big numbers in populations. And so health and equity and justice, again, as I said, was a huge piece of the equation. And if you wanted a take home on what is public health is trying to create conditions under which people can be healthy. Next slide, please. So we also pulled together value statements. Some of these you saw referenced in kind of mission vision, but these are things that we think are very important to us. Some of these are clearly aspirational. Some of these reflect where we are right now, but I think they fit very, very nicely with what is public population health. Next slide, please. By the numbers, you've heard my colleagues talk about numbers. The last 5 years, we've more than tripled our student numbers. This is the newest school at the university. 5 years ago, we were the smallest. We're now, ahead of one or two other colleges in terms of student numbers. Growth has been really substantial lately, the last couple of years in particular. These numbers are 2019 numbers. Our undergraduate ranks grew by 36% over fall last year, and our graduate ranks grew by 20% over last year. Again, we've more than tripled in the last 5 years what our student numbers are. Very proud of that. Now is a time, if you look at what happened with public health nationally, growth was kind of stagnant the last couple of years. Just in March, there was a big, huge jump in numbers. Not surprising. Real quick comment on diversity. Louisville is a community that is about 23% African American. Our student numbers are about 28% that. Our first gen numbers jump around a little bit, but we're often around 30% there, which is ahead of the overall university figure. We also, if you look at the simple number, one simple number is 48% of our students are Anglo. So we have a great deal of diversity of all sorts. And that's not surprising. Public health is for sure a discipline in which it's easier to do that than in other disciplines. Next slide, please. I mentioned quickly reaccreditation. Public health is one of a handful of colleges on campus that not only are SACS accredited, but also are accredited within the discipline. There are about 70 accredited schools of public health in the country. We are one. We get reaccredited on 7-year cycles. We just had our site visit a couple of months ago, well, about 8 weeks ago, yeah. I actually go out and chair site visits for the Council on Education and Public Health, and so I've been in a lot of these. We did a fabulous job. We only had 6 hiccups on what you could argue is 350 or so criteria, 4 of which we've already fixed well in advance of our final report that will go in January. One has to do with the kind of thing that everybody struggles with, and that's following up alumni and their employers to get information on the competencies that our students enter the workplace with. And the other one had to do with some fiscal issues and whether or not the school is adequately resourced. And we're addressing those issues, but we're in a wonderful position to get that official sanction from the board in March of 21. Next slide, please. Wanted to quick touch on our instructional programs. Many of you know that public health academically emerged from medicine about 100 years ago. Clinical folks looking at the preventive policy side of things, and therefore, early on, the only people that were studying in public health were physicians, and so public health emerged in an interesting way. It was only graduate programs, and it was only about the last 25 years or so that we recognized that there were great workforce needs at the undergraduate level. Louisville Public Health didn't have an undergraduate program when I got here. We got busy and put that together. Half of our students are now in the undergraduate program. And one of the interesting programs that we put together in the last year and a half has been the reference here to the accelerated BS MPH program. So you have a 4-year undergraduate degree, 2-year master's degree. If you plan ahead and you're a strong enough student, we can get you through those 2 programs in 5 years. I chair the Association of Schools and Public Health Data Committee, and one of the things we played with was what are the implications for that? And pulling together some of that data, it's very easy to document that doing that accelerated program, spending 1 more year here at Louisville, will have an impact of about $1.2 million on your career earnings. Easily something to try and justify where you can. So that's something that's just starting to take off. We've got a couple new things coming on the horizon, a healthcare management degree and an ethics and social justice degree. Our master's degrees are listed on the right-hand side of the page. Core disciplines in public health are epidemiology and biostat, and then health administration and policy, epidemiology, and environmental occupational health. We've also got a relatively new data analytics degree, and colleagues in the business school and engineering both have similar kinds of tracks that look at data analytics. Next slide, please. Here are our doctoral programs. Several of them are very well regarded. We've got some certificate programs as well. The clinical investigative sciences track is one that essentially helps biomedical clinicians add some research skills to their portfolio. And then we've got a handful of online programs, most recently biostat and data analytics sorts of things. So we've got a diverse portfolio, and the new programs that are on the horizon I just mentioned, I'm very optimistic are going to contribute to our growth curve. Next slide, please. Quickly mention research. When I got here 7 years ago now, the public health school wasn't really on the radar screen in terms of research here at the university. The last 3 years, we've been #2 at the university in terms of research dollars per FTE faculty member. So still small school, but per FTE faculty member. And so we've been very proud of the fact that we've been overt about redefining what a faculty member should look like, and have strong expectancies that faculty will cover a meaningful portion of their salary. Historically, it's been small. We're now approaching 30% across the faculty, and are seeking to get that closer to 33, 35%. There's a number of centers here that I wanted to just put out in front of you. I'm not going to talk about each one of them. We don't have time to do that. The Youth Violence Prevention Research Center is a major CDC funded center of only 6 in the country. This one operates in West Louisville. It's getting lots of attention these days. Our health hazards preparedness program is all in the middle of everything COVID these days, not surprising. Our health organization transformation program is engaged with a number of healthcare providers across the region, and that's a multi-university center that's done a lot of interesting things. Again, the Commonwealth Institute is a policy think tank, basically starting to do a lot of work with the state now, particularly state university partnership projects with Medicare and Medicaid dollars. Happy to answer questions there at the end, but that's a quick snapshot of what we're doing in research. Next slide, please. made reference to this, but we are very much engaged in what's going on COVID. We've got our data analytics cluster of folks have been doing projections. There's figures on our website that are local that a number of people use. We've even been doing projections for Saudi Arabia, and a number of our students are very actively engaged in the city's contact tracing and tracking exercises. So some of our students are getting extraordinary experience as undergraduates and master's students working in this critical area in our community. Next slide, please. Most people will talk at length about how the COVID exercise has really impacted our world. It's the biggest public health crisis of its nature in 100 years. It's also very much linked to the worst economic impact we've seen since the late 20s, early 30s. But some of us would argue that the racism issues that we're facing in this country may be the biggest population health issue that we need to spend attention on. And we're very proud of our president's aspirational goals of creating what will become one of the premier anti-racism urban research universities in the country. That's a big chunk to bite off. But if we can pull that off in Louisville, everybody will recognize what's going on. And so we're very much engaged in that, including our to be offered first blush in the fall of 21, our new undergraduate track in ethics and social justice. We think that's going to be a very popular track for students to look at in the coming years. Next slide, please. One of the other things that I've been very proactive about since I've been here is, we've got the city public health department sitting directly across the street from our offices on Gray Street downtown. We want to blur those boundaries. We think that academic public health is a discipline that is very applied itself. And one of the ways we're doing that is by collaborating on all kinds of projects. But we also have 5 faculty members that are identified here who have actual appointments with the city. Sarah Moyer, everybody should know that name now. She's the director of the health department across the street. She's a faculty member here. Brandy Kelly Pryor is now working at the Humana Foundation and is one of their senior program directors. She is a faculty member here. Asha Brown has just taken over the Office of Youth Development in the last 2 months. Again, a faculty member here. Syed Karimi is a health economist who is the data analytics person at the health department across the street. And Monique Williams is one who's worked with us for a number of years in our West Louisville Youth Violence Prevention Research Center. She is finishing up her doctorate this year and was just hired to be the new director of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods at the city. All of this serves to build stronger working relationships with our community that we think is absolutely important. It also, of course, creates great opportunities for our students to get engaged in all of these different kinds of settings because we got faculty there every day. So this is something, a partnership that's really working well for us. Next slide, Jake. Then I wanted to mention we have a brand new product out that outlines all of our programs, research service and instruction programs here at U of L in public health. And there's a link there that will take you to that digital book. If anybody needs hard copies, we can make them available. I think we had intended to send some over to what was going to be a somewhat live meeting, but again, you can get to that link right there. It does a really nice job of outlining all of our programs. Next slide. These were the final comments that Joe was going to make. He was going to talk about how any and everybody here affiliated with the university can help with particularly things like student record. Sorry?
I think Joe has joined.
I'm sorry, Dean, can you hear me at all?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Me and Lauren probably technology-wise, but let me just wrap up really quick. I was thinking on the corporate side today in the city with the aging care capital and everything we're trying to do around improved wellness aging. I just think the the public health school is going to be front and center today with what's going on in the world. I think this crisis is really exploiting a lot of issues on quality and public health issues. So we think right now with the growth and the team that's been at U of L doing research around these issues 10 years before it started, it's a great time for us to really kind of champion the public health school. I mentioned earlier on slide 2 kind of some of the things that are sister case studies where we can use the public health school for research or co-grant writing or just collaboration in the healthcare provider community. So I just think it's a great resource. I think we kind of built it before everybody else did when the team came to Texas. I think right now I hear more public health comments, board meetings, government meetings. I think we're going to place the students into a lot of these corporate jobs in the city, private and public. I just think it's a great time for us to kind of really expand here and be the front leader in the city around what's going on with vaccinations and COVID and equality and diversity. That we're set up great. Hopefully we can do some stuff in the future as a partner with the public health school and have some other corporate health care groups engage with us. Kind of me and Dean Blakely's vision for years was make public health a bigger seat at the table and be a bigger part of the table. So we're excited about it. I think the team's great. I apologize you can't see me. I've been on the whole time. We're having technology problems. I apologize. And Dean Blakely, I just think the school's so great with your leadership and the resources there and with the growth and enrollment. We just got to get the internship, the career tracks, and just continue to collaborate and move quicker because you guys are going to matter a lot on, I think, redesigning the workplace in the healthcare system.
So I'll just make one last comment, and that was right at the bottom of that last slide was just yesterday had a publication come out with some colleagues that actually paints an outcome picture of public health graduates across the entire country and looks at where they're employed and how many are employed and what kind of settings they're in. So that just seemed timely given this presentation. So I just tossed that out there in case anybody wanted to take a peek. So yeah, last slide was then questions and answers, and it sounds like we're saving all those. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Joe Craig, thank you very, very much. Do we have any questions for any of our academic committees?
Yes,
Okay.
we do, and I will read those off one at a time. So the first one is for the School of Public Health. The question is, they've asked, please discuss how public health is working with the city's public health department on tracking COVID, and what are the challenges? What have we learned to be able to implement so the community has better understanding of the disease spread going forward and in future epidemics/pandemics? Craig?
Sure. Okay. So first thing is I very briefly mentioned that we do a lot of the projections on the implications of behaviors and how they impact the potential increase in cases. And if you were to ask that question to Sarah Moyer, the health department director, she would say that those data have been a godsend in terms of trying to argue with city leadership on how seriously to take this whole issue, because there has been way too much dragging one's feet in our community about how seriously we need to take those things. So our data have been very useful to the leadership in the city and trying to, or in the health department, and trying to convince city leadership to get more aggressive about these things. The collaboration on tracking and tracing has been instrumental. There were a number of hires that were made by the city to run that operation, but our students comprise probably, I don't know, might be 30% of the workforce that's engaged in that now. And you know, we are constantly working with them on things like, I hope most of you have seen the health equity report that comes out from the Center for Health Equity at the City Health Department every 3 years. We're in the middle of all of that work all of the time. And as I mentioned, Syed Karimi is now for the last year, has been the data analytics person at the City Health Department. And so they don't do anything analytic that we're not in the middle of. So we're really joined at the hip on everything that's going on. I'm not sure if I touched on all of the implications of the question, but that's a start.
Thank you, Craig. And related to that question, is there a role for the school with Metro Louisville and its health challenges?
Oh yeah, we've got a couple of great things, for example, that appeared in the Urban League's Black in Louisville document each of the last 2 years that outline very specific things that are, I mean, so we could rattle off how diabetes and a whole host of other health conditions are predictive of the fact that we have a 12-year life expectancy disparity between residents in West Louisville and the rest of the city. So we can very easily articulate some strategies that need to be undertaken to try and whittle down that embarrassing statistic. Yeah, so and now that we're seriously engaged with everything that's going on in the city with respect to youth violence and those sorts of issues, and, you know, and that's been a huge issue in our community for 5 years or more. So yeah, we're doing a lot. Well, the whole university through its signature partnership is doing a lot of work in West Louisville, and you know we've been at that for 11 years now, and Dan can attest to that. He was in the middle of pulling that together. But yeah, public health. When I first got here, one of the first things I said in the dean's meeting was that, you know, my read was that at the time social work was probably most active in West Louisville among all of the colleges. And I told then Dean of social work that our goal was to knock him off the hill. So we all compete a little bit on trying to be most engaged in the community. And I think that's exactly what an urban university is all about, is every single discipline views community engagement and bringing the scholarly overlay to that as a central piece of what we're all about.
Thank you, Craig. One more question for you, and that is, what is the difference between a BA versus a BS degree in public health?
Well, a lot of people could answer that a lot of different ways. Generally, a BS degree is a little bit more research focused, sometimes a little more narrowly focused, and a BA is more a liberal arts kind of broad exposure kind of degree. But that would be a simple way to characterize it. My two colleagues could probably both comment on that as well, or perhaps our president.
No, I think you put it very well. The science piece, the Bachelor's of Science, it's the same with BSBA and you know, BBA or whatever else you might call it in business. More of a clinical component, narrow science, more lab-based work versus the arts degree, which is a broader-based understanding. That's exactly right.
And that concludes the questions at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Jake, very much.
Jake,
And,
I see another question, though. I see a question from Dan Hall that says, Dean Collins, congratulations on increasing the enrollment of African-American students in freshman class. What was the key to doing this?
You're muted, Emmanuel, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm the only one that's ever done that, ever. So the first thing I did was I hired a very good director of admissions. The previous person was good. In fact, this was his assistant, and he won in a competitive process. And I gave him the task of doing this. What he did was he went to more high schools in the Louisville area because that's where a lot of the African Americans and Latinx students reside. So he put an emphasis on doing recruitment locally. Of course, we did recruitment all over the place, but he had a particular emphasis on doing it locally. Also, we noticed that the scholarship offers were almost uniformly accepted by the African American students. And it probably does not hurt that they could identify with the director of admissions is African American. And I think that actually helped him to recruit. But he recruited well with all groups. And that's the good thing, not just the African American.
thank you, Emmanuel. Jake, is there anything else out there in the chat room?
Not at the moment, but I will alert you if a new question comes up.
Okay, I want to thank all of our deans and the council members for all of your hard work pulling these presentations together. It's been unbelievably informative, I think, to everybody on the council, and gives us some really in-depth exposure to what's going on in each of these academic units. I've received several text messages from people during the meeting going, really good meeting, really good meeting. So that's happening. So that leads us to our next order of business. There's a lot of pressure now on you, Neely. Everybody says it's a really good meeting. So we're ready for the president's report, and she's going to keep it all going.
Well, thank you so much. Charlie, I do agree. Very, very good meeting. I was just texting my board chair earlier, I'm sorry, but to say we need to do this for our board, you know, somehow find a way where they can hear from every dean what's going on. I could not be prouder. So you see why they make my life easy. And I have a great set of deans. I will keep my remarks rather short. There's a lot to cover, but I want to give you highlights and especially leave some time for questions. My first order of business is to introduce Jasmine Ferrier to you, our new Vice President for Advancement. And Charlie, one of the things I've always prided myself on is making good hires. So I've really thought that at this time where we are, we needed somebody to head up advancement who really is authentic to the university, cares about the students, cares about the research mission, cares about the service mission. And when we were doing our strategic planning process, I had Jasmine Ferrier head up the piece that had to do with students. She's an award-winning teacher, researcher, all-around great person. From our political science department has, I should actually let her tell you a little bit about herself maybe, but I promised her she didn't have to present today. So maybe I'll give you the pass today because she's been on a roll presenting to many, many people.
I don't mind talking about myself, Neely, but we could do that another time.
Okay, all right, sounds good. I will tell you that if you know anybody who's gone to the University of Louisville, in the last decade or so at least, I know for a fact, she's been here 18 years, and you ask them, do you know Professor Ferrier? If they don't know her, they'll know someone who does. I've gone places with her where alumni will come up, students will come up and say, Professor Ferrier, do you remember me? And she does. I don't know how she does, but she does. So I really love that. It's someone who cares deeply about the university. Jasmine, what week are you in your new role?
13.
Who's counting? I'm telling you. So I'm really pleased that Jasmine is here, and I know that she's looking forward to meeting with many of you. Certainly, Jasmine, one of the things we have to do, you and I, is go to see post-COVID world, John McCall, because he's a Renaissance man with his woodworking skills. It's a treat. We have to go back. I'm shamelessly fishing for an invitation for you and me. So that's, I just wanted to introduce Jasmine to you. A couple of other things would be our alumna of the year. This year is Alice Houston. I know many of you know her. Please send her your congratulations. COVID-19 has made everything very strange, but I will tell you that yesterday I did an interview with Alice that Jasmine and her team came up with the idea. We'll post it somewhere. I strongly encourage you to take a look at that, because the many contributions she's made to this university and to the community and the love she has for Louisville and for the university are really contagious. So I hope that you will pay attention to that. Very quickly, I will tell you that the 3 grand challenges we've set up for our university have really stood the test of time. I have been here in my role for 2 years and about 4 months, off of which, of the 2 years, 4 months, more than 7 months have been COVID related. It's unreal to me, like how quickly time has gone by and how strange this time has been. The 3 grand challenges and the 3 deans that presented to you, and we will have these presentations. I think Charlie is intending to have all academic units present to you, is you will see this, that they actually tap into the 3 broad themes of the university. One is empowering our communities. So the work that we do as a metropolitan research university clearly empowers our communities. So that's one area that we are focused on. The second area that we say is a grand challenge we must tackle is advancing health. How do we make sure that individuals in our community are living not just longer lives, but healthier lives? And so whether it's through the Traeger Institute for Optimal Aging, or whether it's the work that's being done across the board, that's the second big area for us. The final area, the third grand challenge, is engineering the future of work. And you'll see engineering the future, we put that in on purpose, as I believe Marty pointed out to you, engineering is very key, and we've got to make sure that we build on the strengths that we have. So anyway, that's our 3 grand challenges. And why I thought these were good was they stand the test of COVID-19. If you look at past COVID-19, what will we do? Comes back to communities, health, and what will the future of work be? You know, whether it's telecommuting, more digital technologies, it comes back to the same thing. Similarly, if you look at the racial inequity challenges and the conversations that are happening, they too come back to these 3 broad areas. Couple of other big things for you to keep in mind are we've posted the position for a business and industry liaison. It will sit within the EVP for research, Executive Vice President for Research and Innovation. So all of you in the President's Council, once we make that hire, so reporting to Kevin Gardner, we will be sure to let you all know who that individual is. Because as you said, maybe you have an opportunity for an internship for a business school student. Maybe you have an opportunity for research in engineering. Maybe you need a community group that wants to connect to public health. You'll at least have a conduit for all businesses and industry so we can do a better job of tracking how we are doing. It doesn't take away anything from individual units. It's more to help them by making more connections. Big focus, obviously, on experiential learning. I'm eager for you to see the strategic plan come into action. We will have a report ready to present. As soon as it's ready, Charlie, I'll make sure that we send it to everybody on President's Council at the same time that we send it to the Board of Trustees and everybody else. Our report card for year 1. As you know, I set a 2019 to 2022 strategic plan so that we can be held accountable. We want to report on year 1 and the progress we have made. Kudos to my team. They've worked extraordinarily hard because in a year with so much going on, I'm pleased to report to you that our enrollments have grown slightly or are holding, and that our research last year is a record-setting year for us, knock on wood. You know, you will see that it's grown significantly year over year, and our academic standing has improved. In US News and World Report, we've gone up 16 spots. We're still not where we want to be, but it's really good that things are moving in the right direction. UFL Health, a big concern for all of us. I am so grateful at the number of actions that had to come together, the number of people who had to support us in preserving healthcare in this community. I can tell you that during COVID-19, if we did not have Jewish Hospital, if we did not have Mary and Elizabeth, you know, the impact on the community would have been truly dreadful. So I'm very pleased with what is happening there. For students, you will also see, not just for students, for everybody, you will see us be launching a new marketing campaign, a branding campaign, which builds on this idea that it's not what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's the opposite, that what happens in UFL allows you to have an impact well beyond. So we're calling it the here and beyond, and it's consistent with what you heard all the 3 deans talk about. And I'm so proud of them. Whether it's Todd saying, what are the problems in Louisville? How do we best address them? Whether it's Emmanuel Collins talking about the pipeline we are building, or Craig Blakely talking about a healthy competition to be more engaged in the community. These are the things that differentiate us. So to say, how will our students benefit from it? So focus on, can we give every student, this is my dream, every student who comes in gets a curricular map that says, here is towards your major, here are the courses you take. Can we give them a co-curricular map that says, while you are here, to make the most of your time, you've got to have a study abroad experience, you've got to have an internship, you've got to have service learning, some undergraduate research, something that allows them to make the most of their time here. Lastly, on two updates, COVID-19, I am so proud of our faculty and staff and students. I will tell you the latest numbers from this morning. Our 7-day average is about 1.66%. So it's significantly lower than what it is in the community, but I know there's a lot more we need to do. We are staying vigilant. We've asked for mandating flu shots. We're doing everything that we possibly can. And one of the ways, people ask me, how are we doing this? One of the ways is pretty much every week or two, I meet with, thanks to Dean Michael Martis, who's a wonderful Dean of Students for us. We get on a call with different student leaders, Greek life, residence halls, sports clubs, to say, you need to help us. Because if you don't, we'll be shutting down the university. It's in all of our interest to keep one another safe. I don't have the answer, but I always tell the students, can you help me make it not cool to appear somewhere without a mask? You know, it should just be, that's not nice for you to do. That's not cool, because you may be fine, but you're putting someone else at risk. And so that's proceeding as it should. And very proud of our CODRA. We have a group, there are two groups that have been on UFL's campus under many presidents, and that is the Commission on Diversity and Racial Equality and the Commission on the Status of Women. And so I asked our CODRA chair, Karen Chavez, and definitely the better half in the Blakely household, it's Craig's wife. Sorry, Craig, I'm a Karen fan. What can I tell you? She's an extraordinary singer, by the way. That's why Karen is my.
30 years, Neely.
Huh?
I've heard that for 30 years.
There you go. But she is an extraordinarily talented singer on top of everything else. But anyway, Karen Chavez is the chair of the CODRA this year. They have engaged about 120 people across campus, I think. It's a first draft. I said, come up with ideas to make us an anti-racist university. And I want you all to know what I mean by anti-racism, because people ask me, I was actually interviewed, I told them, they said, are both parties supportive of anti-racism? I said, absolutely. Racism is the simple idea that the color of your skin gives you an inherent superiority or inferiority. So anti-racism to me is just a very simple idea that the color of your skin does not give you any inherent superiority or inferiority. And so I'm excited about working with Karen and the whole of CODRA. We're talking about what can we do to provide more opportunities and level the playing field and allow people to succeed. Faculty, staff, students, administrators. So please stay tuned. I will absolutely keep you all involved as things go forward. These are difficult conversations as we have them and engage them. And there are some requests that I am unable to say yes to, even if students ask, and others that I might say, oh no, you're not going far enough, we need to do more. But I will tell you that to the best of my ability, I'm trying to make decisions that allow a university to be what it should be, a place where we debate ideas, where we respect each other, where we transform lives for the better, for individuals and for communities. So that's a little bit of what's going on. There's so much more. I could delve into any one area, but I will tell you that so far, one other new area that I will update you on as it goes on is I'm now on the executive committee of the ACC. And so it's It's been a good learning experience to be able to be more engaged as we debate some big topics. And it's not just athletics. The ACC presidents, we talk about academics and where we are, how we're moving ahead. So good goalposts for the University of Louisville. Any questions for me?
We do not have any new questions in the Q&A section of this event, not yet, but if they do come in, I will let you know.
Thank you, thank you. So Mr. Dahlem, I want to say thank you to you for agreeing to be president for another year, and I'm really looking forward to what we can work on and what we can do. And that goes to Cheryl and Dan as well.
Thank you. It's an honor to be your chair, and thank you for asking me. And there's a lot of great things that we're all going to do moving forward. Just listening to what the deans have told us today, your report, Neely. I mean, we're on the right track. This is a tough road. This is a tough road, but we're getting there. We're getting there. If there's any other questions for Neely that come in, we'll come back and address those kind of toward the end of my comments. We're moving forward.
Actually, one just came in, if that's okay.
All right, let's go.
Sure, it's for Neely, and the question is, are you going to cancel spring break to keep students from possibly bringing COVID back to campus?
We have pivot to spring like we did pivot to fall. I will tell you that we are going to have a later start to the semester and have a much shortened break. So it won't be really a spring break where we had enough time that students could go away and come back. So that's correct. We will have a break. We won't have no days off, but much shortened so that there's not the opportunity for students to travel and bring things back. Young people, not just children, are disease vectors, right? They're just much more active and they can resist it. So we are being cognizant of that. Charlie, I forgot to mention one thing, may I?
Absolutely, sure, please.
We have a number of searches going on. I just wanted to make you all aware. We have a search for our provost position, and we've had our first candidate come through. We have 3 more that are coming, and really happy with the caliber and the group that's coming in. 2 deans are heading up that search, and the Dean of Dentistry and Dean of Social Work, with a very broad committee. For those of you who are not used to universities, I want you to know that this is par for the course. People find it so surprising, but in academe, it's like Noah's Ark. We'll have representatives across the board for interviews. And for faculty, we actually sometimes hire them a whole year ahead of time because people said, when will they start? And so it might be January or it might be July 1, but that's par for the course for academe. So we're looking forward to that. We also have a search going on for the Dean of Arts and Sciences. And actually, Craig, you are chairing it along with, is there someone else as a co-chair?
Well, Tracy is always our rock solid support that keeps us honest and by the rules.
Sounds good. So there's that going on. And then we have a search for a general counsel. So let me just say it's a busy time on our campus, but these were all planned searches. So we are excited about how we proceed, and we'll keep you posted.
We have some new questions from Bill Stone. What is the latest on the NCAA issue?
So Bill, we are waiting. We've submitted our rebuttal and we're waiting to see. And we're expecting to hear somewhere, there's a timeline. I can actually work back or look. I think we thought mid-November or so is when we should hear from the NCAA.
Thank you. Mary Gwen Wheeler asks, well, first off, congrats on maintaining enrollment. And then she asks if there's any data yet on how the employment of the graduating class of 2020 fared.
That's a great question, Mary Gwen. I don't have it ready. I do want to say a little quick thank you to MG and to David Jones Jr. because they've helped us to hire somebody to help degree completers. That's something I wanted to mention. In addition to what you're hearing from the deans on the traditional students that are coming in, I hear numbers that in Louisville, there are so many people who have a little bit of college, but not enough, and to complete. So we've made an effort to do that. And Mary Gwen, I don't have the numbers for it. We'll get back to you on that. However, I should brag to you about our NSA grant that we got to train people on cybersecurity and healthcare. So we're hoping that it's something that we'll start with veterans and EMTs and so on, but 6-month program, highly competitive, about 300 universities applied. We're glad we got it. And Sharon Carrick from our Center for Digital Transformation is heading that up. So don't ask why that thought process went that way, but there is actually a link. I just don't have time to explain it. But it's the things we are doing now to increase the employability of our students. So for example, 4 years from now, every student who graduates, the freshmen who come in and who graduate from UFL, whether they're poets or philosophers or music majors or math majors, each of them will have 5 micro-credentials in the digital economy. That's engineering for the future, so that they have the basics, because I truly believe it's like reading and writing. They need to understand how to be competitive. And that's across the core curriculum. They're working on how to embed it into our core curriculum.
Thank you, Neely. Another question related to students in spring break. Will students be retested after the spring break?
Absolutely. So whenever they come back, we're testing them, trying to do before and after. So we have had some periods where it's mandatory, but we've actually committed to keeping it open throughout. So a student, not just a student, a faculty member, a staff member, very easy process whereby they can go and get tested multiple times because we want them to be safe.
I can attest to that. I get tested every 2 weeks at the University Club. Next, another question is from Steve Jones about the men's and women's basketball schedule. Is there any updates to that?
We are, we're still waiting to see what happens. I think that we've heard, everything is proceeding. It's obviously, as you know, you've been watching the news, games will be scheduled and then a team may be healthy or not. So if you looked at your tickets, we just say game 1, game 2, game 3, because we're not sure who we will play then, how things will go. That's kind of where we are. Right now, everything is set. We think that we may have 15% audience, something like that. It's the governor trying to set the numbers across the board, but no real updates. Vince has been very actively engaged in that as well.
That concludes the questions, except for an exclamation that Charlie is an awesome chairman.
He is an awesome chairman. We do agree.
Thank you, Jake. Well, not to belabor the love fest, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that when we're putting these things together, it's difficult. There's a lot of behind the scenes, and Jake makes it easy for all of us. So I want to thank Jake for and his team for what he does to make this whole thing happen, because I was talking to Jake at 10:30 last night and he was still totally immersed in trying to make this thing a go and put together. So just thank you, Jake, for a job well done, and to your whole team.
And Jake has had quite a week because we have 5 different board meetings this week. I don't know why we arranged it that way. Lots going on. So yes, thank you for the thank you to Jake.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you all. The next thing I'd like to mention, make sure that you all hadn't missed this. Our good friend Dick Swope lost his wife, Ann. It was in the obituaries today. And, Dick's been a great friend. Dick and Ann have been great friends to the university for a long time and a good friends to our Cardinal family. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Reach out to him if appropriate, and you might want to go read the obituary. It was a very nice obituary. She was a very, very sweet lady. So I did want to make mention of that, and our condolences to Dick and his family. The next thing I want to mention is that we're going to continue to move through our academic unit committees. Some of you all are meeting, some of you haven't met yet. Obviously, the school's working through COVID and navigating all of that right now, so it's slowed us a little bit, but you know, we're moving through. We had some great report outs today, and again, I just want to thank everybody for your hard work making that happen. We've had great enthusiasm from the deans putting individuals from the President's Council onto their existing advisory boards, and if they don't have one, they're interested in forming one around our group. And so I want to thank them for welcoming us and into your fold. Thank you very much for that. Now, it's a really, really great pleasure to take an opportunity right now to formally thank and recognize John McCall for his service to the university as my predecessor to the chair of the President's Council. John's served the university faithfully, energetically, and effectively as a member of the council since 2013. John distinguished himself as a hardworking and cooperative participant in a wide range of university activities, winning the respect and the affection of his fellow council members. John served as an engaging member and as both the chair and the vice chair, and he stepped in when our good friend, the late Debbie Scapecchio, could no longer fulfill her duties. John led us through 2 presidencies, numerous bylaw changes, and of course, a name change for the council. John's commitment and involvement to the council has shaped the university to embrace its objective to be the premier anti-racist metropolitan university in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I hope you'll join me in expressing our sincere admiration and deep appreciation to John for his contributions to U of L. He is a dear friend, our colleague, a great leader, a role model. And last week, John, I think you received the token of our appreciation, at least you were supposed to have received it, and we would love to have given it to you in person. But I just wanted to thank you on behalf of everybody on the council and thank you for being a great mentor to me.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you.
Thanks, me.
And thank you, Neely. Your years of service, Charlie, and your friendship are important to me, and you've done a great job in your year plus as chairman. I thank you for that. I'll say just a word or two about the plaque I received from Neely and from Jake, and the thanks that were said to me in extending that plaque of appreciation. That I was struck in listening to the 4 reports today, the President's report and the reports of the School of Public Health and the Speed School and the Business School, that remind me that there is this unbreakable chain that ties the University of Louisville to this community. And as so goes the health of one, as goes the health of the other. We will not break that chain. We will not change that tie. We will not change the importance of one to the other. And I'm reminded that there was a period of time not too long ago when the university itself seemed like a punching bag. And we took a blow from the right and a blow from the left and another blow, and they all hurt. And we were almost down on one knee, and we needed the help of the community to get back together. And we turned to the community for help. And the President's Council led that effort to enlist the support of the community to support the university through a very difficult stretch. It's my sense that now the community has become the punching bag and has taken one blow after another. And it is in need of the help and guidance of the university to bring itself back to fighting good form and to be ready to fight the next fight. And that chain that ties the two together is so critically important that Charlie and Neely and Jake and all the rest of you deans and members of the staff are going to make that a meaningful health development issue and support the city, or we're not. And I believe we will. And I like what I hear in these reports. I think it's so critically important. And I think the President's Council has a very critical role to play in making that connection as strong and powerful as it can be.
Beautiful.
John, so well said. So well
Beautiful.
said, and thank you. I mean, to say it's been a year unlike any other is the understatement of the century. We are, we continue to move through a changing landscape, and the university is doing a great job navigating it right now. Neely, with your leadership, and the President's Council stands ready to assist you whenever and wherever you need us. So with that said, if there's, that concludes my report and my thoughts. If there's any other thoughts, questions, additional business to come before the council, please let me know. Jake, is there anything out there that we need to?
No, there are no new questions as of yet.
Charlie, I loved John McCall's comments so much. Jake, are we recording this?
Yes, we are.
I would love to get that snippet of John McCall's comments. I really would, about the relationship of the university and the community. I think those would be very fitting words to share more broadly. So thank you. Thank you, Charlie. I just wanted to say how beautifully that was said.
That's why it's so tough to be the chair after John McCall. So
I agree. I understand.
We'll just say that out loud. So, so if we have no other business to come before us, stay safe, stay healthy. January 5th, 2021 is when we're going to meet next. 2021, not 20. We're going to put 20 in the rearview mirror. So everybody stay safe and healthy, and we'll all stay in touch. And thank you all for all your time today, and thank you for all the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.